Hi, everybody. Welcome to FSU Coach Live. My name is Tim Baghurst, and today I'm joined by Elisabeth. I'm going to get it wrong. I know I am Elisabeth Oehler. I know it wasn't good. So you tell us how to say your last name and maybe introduce yourself and tell us how you got to the position you have today.
Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is in German we would say Elisabeth Oehler, but we're gonna go with Elisabeth. That's fine. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I'm currently working as a freelancer and have a few projects in coaching education. Until last year, I was the head of talent identification for the German Weightlifting Federation. So basically, what I was doing was trying to find talents for weightlifting from other sports or from youth sports. I worked a lot with transitional athletes, so they came from, for example, athletics and wanted to go to weightlifting. Yeah, that's what I did the last 3 years. And now I'm working as a freelance strength and conditioning coach. I work with a variety of sports, mainly rugby. I worked a little bit in basketball and athletics, and yeah, these kind of sports. And currently, I'm in a coaching education project for the sports ministry in Luxembourg. And we're gonna try to create a new framework for coaches education. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
If you wouldn't mind, tell us, and by the way, if you're watching and you have a question for Elisabeth, just put it in your chat box and we'll get it to her. But explain talent identification. How do you identify talent in weightlifting? What are you looking for?
So it's a very difficult question. Am I frozen? I don't know.
We can hear you. I can't see you.
That's great. Okay. So it's a very difficult question because, first of all, weightlifting is a sport that has a very late peak age. So basically, you are on your best when you're almost 30. But weightlifting also requires to learn the techniques quite early. So it's pretty important to start early with learning the techniques, and then it's a very, very long route to finally have your peak age at 28 or 29. For me, talent in weightlifting, and that was, I think, the biggest challenge for me is that you can't really see talented athletes before PHV and before puberty. So it's that made my job quite difficult, and that's also when I decided I don't believe in that whole concept of identifying talents as early as possible. So I'm mainly focused on trying to find transitional athletes, for example, from powerlifting or from the throwing disciplines of athletics, or we had judo athletes that were pretty strong and that could transition to weightlifting. So I'm all into, first of all, late specialization and identifying talents later than expected. Like, even though we have to do weightlifting with the kids, but it's not really that I can see a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old and say, oh, he's a talent for weightlifting. Whoever does that has no clue, because there are so many changes until they are 19, 20, 21 years old. So it's I think it's wrong to already identify talents that early. And that's also one reason why I'm not doing this job anymore, because it's not really science-based to identify talents when they are 12 or 13 years old.
Okay, so let's continue. You talked about not believing in the idea that you can identify talent at 12 and 13, which is I think many would say controversial, because most sports are looking for talent in 12 and 13-year-olds. Why do you have this opinion? What reasoning do you have that goes against so many sports and so many scouts who are looking for the next superstar in the youth sports?
Yeah. First of all, I don't think that we can predict later success. So I don't think we can look at a 12 or a 13-year-old, especially for sports that have a late peak age, and say, oh, that's a talented, he's a talented athlete. Like they are 12 and 13, they are just at the start of the probably most changes from every aspect is going to happen when they are between 12, 13 and 18, 19 years old. So they have I don't think that it's useful to focus on identifying talents that early, because we also put them into early specialization, and that's what we don't really want to do. We can only identify like talent for a specific sport. We can what we can do with like 12 or 13-year-olds is like we can identify, oh, he has like some athletic talent, like he has extraordinary coordination skills, or he's just he's already fast or whatever. We can identify basic athletic talent, but like talent for a specific sport, let's take weightlifting or any other Olympic sport that has like a late peak age, we can only identify those talents when they do the actual sport. But we actually don't really want to have like 12-year-olds that just focus on one sport to get better at it. So that's not like, it's actually like it's the opposite of the concept that we actually want. We want to have like a multi-sport approach. We want them to do a variety of different sports, to make experiences in a lot of different movements. But at the same time, we want to identify a talent for a specific sport. And we only identify talents for specific sports when they do the specific sport. And all these talent development programs, they are supporting early specialization, even though they most of the time they say, oh, we don't really want to do early specialization, but they actually do by saying, oh, this 12-year-old is going to be a, I don't know, weightlifter when he's 28. That's I think that's a bit the controversial part.
Now you've been I have some echo. Do you have something on in the background?
No.
That's weird. Okay, it seems to have fixed itself. We're having some issues. Well, technology. You've been in weightlifting, and the picture for your ad for this interview was of you coaching a young female doing, I think, a snatch.
Clean and jerk.
Sorry, I couldn't remember. I was trying to remember. Many people would say, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing weightlifting with children. And I know that you have experienced some resistance, maybe some opposition on social media and things about doing this. Why do you do weightlifting, weight training with kids? Because, most people, that's so dangerous, Elisabeth. What are you doing? We all know that it stunts growth and all these things. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, unfortunately, there are a lot of misconceptions and myths around weightlifting with kids or strength training with kids in general. I don't know where this whole growth plates or the effect on growth plates, where this comes from, because I think this myth has been debunked like 20 years ago. There's a study, I think, from Avery Feigenbaum, he's from 1999, where he already says it doesn't affect or strength training with kids and weightlifting for kids or lifting in general for kids. It doesn't affect the growth plates. And but we are still having all these misconceptions, especially doctors and physios. I think I get the most backlash from physiotherapists that are just not up to date on what research says about strength training with kids. First of all, like this video or the videos I always post on my social media with kids who are doing basic lifts, all of them do other sports too. Like people always forget that when I put a 11-second clip on my social media, then they think like that's all these kids doing, but that's not the case. Like most of them play soccer or they play table tennis, or I even have a kid that still goes to gymnastics. I have one that does equestrian sports. So it's like they come from a very variety of different sports, and we do like basic strength training once a week. And then I implement like 10 minutes of technique training of the snatch and the clean and jerk. First of all, because they learn the technique and it can be useful later when you can actually put on load. In the beginning, you just work on teaching them like the technique, and without any load, we have special kids bars that are like 5 kilograms, and we have these big plastic weights that look extremely big, but when you look a little closer, you see that it's only 1 kilogram per side. So we always tried, or I always try to, I call them backpack weights. So they shouldn't lift more than what they have in their backpack when they're going to school, and that's also a good thing to like sell to parents, like that we only use backpack weights, so we don't use more than what they are actually carrying in the backpack to school. And it's like I still get a lot of like backlash, and then people always say, oh, kids should focus on body weight, and they always act like body weight isn't weight. Like when a kid does a handstand against the wall, that's more weight, or he's holding more weight basically overhead than when he does the snatch. So I think a lot of people, I don't really know where this is coming from, and sometimes I even wonder like why people are so against free weights, and they don't really understand that, especially with kids, you can use free weights to actually make them achieve body weight movements, because we have a lot of kids that are not able to do push-ups, and they are not able to do pull-ups, and we can use weights to kind of prepare those body weight movements. So body weight is not always better, and body weight is not always less weight. Like the body weight is something as well. And I've made the experience in physical education that, or I had a few schools where I coached like a normal PE class, that especially kids who are overweight or who have other difficulties, then we can let them do a bench press with like 10 kilograms or 15, and that's way less weight than if they had to do a push-up. That's why we always call the bench press the reverse push-up. And so I can progress, and at the end they can do like a push-up, and that's like what I use weight training for. And with learning snatches or clean and jerks, you basically have a lot of intermuscular coordination. They learn a new skill, so it's actually like I try to keep it fun. And I think a lot of people need to calm down a bit. Just because I post like a 10-second video on Instagram about one of my kids lifting doesn't mean that this kid's lifting for 2 hours every day. That's just not the case.
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the backlash that you get on social media. As a person, as an individual, that cannot be fun, and none of us like being criticized. So perhaps one might argue, well, to avoid that criticism, don't post these things on social media, don't be visible, don't connect with people like me. to be out here talking about something that many people call controversial. And I like the fact that you identified that physical therapists and doctors are often the ones criticizing you, because I've read research as well to suggest that they, maybe not the physical therapists, but certainly the doctors, are sometimes behind because they have to know so much about everything, whereas we specialize in areas. How do you deal with the criticism, given that people are just sometimes not nice?
Yeah. First of all, like in the beginning, I think when I started my whole coaching journey, and especially coaching kids and weightlifting or doing strength training with kids, I was shocked of how uninformed people are and how they put certain things like on a personal level. Like I think when I posted the first video of one of my kids doing a snatch with, I think it was like 15 kg or something like that. I had people actually in my DMs telling me that I would torture kids and I'm gonna take away their childhood and stuff like that. So they put it on an extremely personal level, and I was like, chill. It's not like you are seeing a 10-second video, so you can't really judge what's going on in this kid's life. And also what I figured out, that a lot of people are against individual sports for kids, and they always like, oh, they need a team and they need to do a team sport and they need to go into, like, they need to learn team building, teamwork, whatever. I actually had a lot of kids who just, they wanted to do their own stuff. That's why they came to weightlifting. They didn't want to work in a team. And I think it's fine. It's fine if they want to. They have like they have other social places where they interact with other kids. They don't have to do a team sport in particular. And especially kids that have like, they are, for example, obese or have other difficulties. They don't want to be always the last one in the team. They rather want to, like an obese kid in weightlifting is the star. And that's the only place where you can be the star. So, and that's why I think, or that's why I kept on posting and why I kept on showing actually what I do. And I try to explain why I do it. And I think for me as a coach, it was a huge learning process and a huge learning experience, because when you coach kids, you deal with a lot of parents, and you have to deal with parents. And sometimes the way they think and the way they are influenced has an immediate effect on what you're doing as a coach with the kids. So by actually getting all this backlash on social media, and especially with arguments that are not really arguments, and like when some people wrote, oh, I know what my doctor said that this is bad, and this is bad for the joints, and this is bad for the back, and I was like, look here, this is the research, and it doesn't back up what you're saying. So here I can actually explain why we're doing this, and they are still in their opinion, or they caught up in their opinion. They're like, no, but my doctor said that this is so bad. And this is what you deal as a coach, or that's what you deal with as a coach with parents. You have a lot of parents that have no clue about what you're doing with, like, or have no clue about strength training at all. And you have to kind of learn how to explain to them that this is not harming their child, and it's actually good for their child, and then go on a very easy level and try to convince them that you're doing actually a good job with introducing their kids to proper strength training. So I actually took all this backlash on social media for, first of all, for learning how I deal with people, like then in the coaching environment, and how I convince parents or other people that criticize me for what I'm doing. I think that's what you have to go through, and all these trolls that don't really, that are just taking it on a personal level. I think that's if it gets too personal, then I delete such stuff and I don't react on it. But sometimes I also, when there are very stupid comments on one of my videos, I'll leave them online, and then I'm like, thank you for your opinion. Here's an article.
Mhm.
I'm not going to further comment on that. And then I sometimes hope that these people embarrass themselves on the internet.
And perhaps educate them as well. Maybe
Yeah.
they just didn't know and need to know. I want to change directions a little bit and talk about coaching as a business, because I got an email today even to discussing the development of a coaching program to produce coaches. What are they going to do when they graduate? Can you really have a job as a coach? And we discussed this before the show, but talk a little bit about how you set up your business and how you make money as a coach, and why do you do it? Because I don't think that coaching has always been what you planned on doing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've actually, well, my coaching journey is probably, yeah, pretty unique. I was a coach before I actually studied sports science, and now I'm in a master's program of sports coaching. So I've been a coach long before I did the academical route. So I've actually been a law student. I was in law school for several years, and did sports for myself. And I coached here and there on a volunteer basis. And it was all, yeah, it was all just for fun. And like everyone, like in my friends or my family, they always said like, yeah, coaching in sports, that's not gonna bring you any money. So you have to finish law school. That's your job. Then you can do all the sports for fun, like in your free time. And I was like, but actually, this is like coaching is so much more fun than practicing law. That I was like, I made a huge decision a couple of years ago to quit law school. I didn't write the board exams, and I started basically a coaching job. In a school and in a weightlifting club for very little money. Like it was basically, yeah, it was not much, but it was one of the best times I had and where I learned the most, because I got thrown into a class of like 15 kids, and I had to teach them what to coach weightlifting and general physical education classes, and I learned a lot. But I lived in an extremely small apartment. I was broke every month. And then I decided I have to yeah, I have to like when you don't really have any qualifications as a coach, and you do just everything like how you think it's right, um, you're not gonna go anywhere further, because it's quite of a requirement to be educated in that. So luckily I got offered a job at the German Weightlifting Federation, because I don't know, I was just at the right place at the right time. I did a lot of youth coaching and a lot of teaching weightlifting to kids. So that's why they offered me a job. And then I started studying sports science, or a bachelor in sports science, part-time, or basically I did it actually full-time next to a full-time job. And that's where that's how my coaching career, I don't really like calling it career, where it actually where I didn't like, where I could move to a bigger apartment and where I could make some money. And yeah, then like the last 3 years, I've studied full time and did the full time job. That comes with basically no private life. And then also like, yeah, it's like the focus was on finishing my degree and learning as much as possible about coaching. I was lucky to, I was glad that I got a lot of opportunities to build a network through German weightlifting and also through the stuff I did. So weightlifting with kids or strength training with kids is something a lot of other sports where they have like a lack of education or they don't really know how they should approach this whole thing. And I got involved with different sports, like for example, rugby or handball or athletics, and I did like basically strength training for the youth athletes of these sports. And end of last year I decided to leave German weightlifting and do more work in different sports and not have a 40-hour week in a federation, but do wanted to have like the opportunity to work with a variety of different sports and especially promote the whole athletic development idea that I have and introduce strength training early into different sports federations.
Good.
Yeah.
Thinking now about the way you've come into coaching, which is actually is like a lot of coaches, not necessarily intentional. It's happened this way. What advice do you have for other people who are looking to maybe get into coaching or pursue a coaching career and they've thought about it, but the security of this job or something to that effect is maybe stopping them from going and pursuing their passion?
Yeah. I think what people need to realize is that in the beginning, you do a lot of volunteering. Like you do a lot of volunteer coaching where you don't really make a lot of money. You can criticize this in the industry. I know a lot of people do criticize it. I also criticize all these unpaid internships that especially elite clubs offer, where you basically doing a full-time SNC, for example, strength and conditioning job, and you're not getting paid anything. But I think that's part of the industry, and you have to kind of deal with it. So in the beginning, you have to do a lot of volunteering and building networks. I think it's all about networks and convincing convincing clubs or convincing parents or convincing other coaches to work with you. That's basically what you have to do as a young coach. And what I don't recommend anyone is going to university, study sports science full time, and not coaching on like a volunteer level or on a, I don't know, on a like a side job or whatever. I don't think you can't really become a good coach when you just go to university and don't put all the theory you learn into practice, because I see it very often. I see a lot of coaches or young coaches, especially young coaches, that come from university and they have maybe coached like, I don't know, one of their friends, and that's it. That's not really how you learn how to coach. You need a group. You need to be able to know what you do in a group setting. In theory is important, but it's not that you can put this one-to-one into the practical setting afterwards. And I think a lot of people also have or a lot of students at university or who do like a sports science degree or whatever, they have this big dream of working for one of the in the elite environment immediately after they graduate.
Of
That's
course.
that's awesome. And I like, of course, I got a job in an elite environment pretty quickly, but it's not where you actually learn how to coach, and can't really develop if you haven't gone the grassroots way. Because if you're able, I always say that if you're able to teach 10-12-year-olds the basic lifts, you can coach anyone. Because that's like when you are able to handle a bunch of kids with complete different backgrounds, with complete different talents, with who are in a difficult age. I don't like saying difficult, but they are in a very difficult phase. If you're able to do that, you are then coaching elite is easy. Then you can apply everything you learned at a university. But I think that's what people need to realize. You can't start on the top.
Even if we want. Well, Elisabeth, let me just ask you social media go. What is the best way to reach out to you if they have questions?
If someone has questions, I have a Twitter account. It's EO Performance. I have an Instagram account, the same name. I have a website that has the same name, and I also have LinkedIn, and that's it. Yeah.
So just for those of you who are listening to the podcast, that's EO_performance.
Exactly.
And you can be able to find Elisabeth across the different social media platforms.
Yeah.
Elisabeth, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your perspectives, especially that last section. I got some quotes I think we could definitely use from that. So thank you once again.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the invitation. And yeah. If anyone has questions, just contact me.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder that we have interviews every Wednesday, so be sure to stay with us and prepare. Next week we'll be at 8 a.m., which is a little unusual. Normally we're doing 2 p.m., but 8 a.m. join us next Wednesday for another interview on FSU Coach Live.